Have you subscribed yet? Hi everybody, and if you are a part of the OGONL fam, then I want to thank you first and foremost for your continued love and support. I'm always expressing my gratitude to you guys on these videos as well as on my Instagram. If you are a new tune-in-er or a new viewer, then I thank you so much for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe to me and click on the little bell down below so you are always up to date with what I'm doing and all my little shenanigans. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram because that's where I'm sharing other nonsense or things that I want to share with you guys. So today I thought I would brighten up the week a little bit and maybe try and bring some humor into the really crappy, I guess, elements of travel and immigration. I think that that's something that a lot of people have been asking me about, to be more honest with you guys about some of the just shitty things that happened when I was living in other countries, and what I had to go through, I guess, in terms of struggle or stuff like that. So let's get started. Okay, so the first question that I was asked a lot about was what exactly happened when I was in Australia. And I think Australia is the real place where I really had to deal with immigration stuff. But I did have a work permit when I was in Germany. I had a student permit when I was in UK. I was in Wales. And I think that's it. Everywhere else I've kind of gone on holiday permits or I've been sponsored or whatever. So in Australia, I went in on a working holiday. In case you guys haven't seen my older videos and you don't know what's going on, I also just realized my tripod is slanted. So if the video is slanted, I'm so sorry. Maybe I'll I don't know how to put my head, but whatever. Anyways, focus. So I went to Australia on a working holiday. In case anyone has not seen my older videos, which I advise you do, feel free to go and stalk me to the full extent, but just don't be creepy. Be cool stalker, cliche or ironic or whatever. So no cliche, just be ironic. Okay, I need to focus. Anyways, I went to Australia on a working holiday, and that's I was really young at the time and I qualified for it. I was from a qualifying country. I was of the qualifying age. I did all the stuff. I went through the medical test and all that sort of shebang. And then I went to Australia, and basically what happens is you get the working holiday for a year, and then if you want to stay an extra year, you have to do farm work, which I've already also spoken about many years ago. I didn't do that because I was I don't want to work on a farm and, whatever. So I wound up transferring from a working holiday to a student visa. That's kind of where I ran into my first sort of, just shit pile of troubles. I went through a migration agency, and I think I told you guys that the college was the one that screwed me over, but the college I think has since shut down, and I've tried to look through my emails and find the name of it, and I haven't been able to. But the point is that I was screwed over by a migration agency who took cash from me, and I feel that should have been my first sign to be I feel like this is really shady. But I thought, because the lady was so convincing to me, she was like, hey, if you pay us cash, you don't have to pay as much, you're Canadian, you're good to go, we'll get you a 2-year student permit. And then I paid her, I think $7,000 or $6,000 Australian. And I went overseas for a few weeks, and when I came back at the airport, I was held. When the immigration officer kind of looks at your passport and looks at you and looks at the passport and looks at you and does this several times, you're like, oh my god, what did I do? You start thinking about that time when you were 6 years old and you stole a pencil from Staples or something, and you're did they find out that I stole something? And you freak out. So I had no idea what I did wrong, because in my head I was hey, I'm a good citizen, but I stole that pencil that one time in first grade. So it turns out the migration agency was a dud, and I was held in the Sydney International Airport for a few hours, and I was told that I would be put back on a plane and sent back to wherever I came from. And then it wasn't until I think 2-3 hours later, it was 4 o'clock in the morning, and another immigration agent or officer came in, and he basically like sat down with me, he talked to me, and I showed him all the papers I had. I showed him all the registration documents. I showed him my actual student visa, and he said that the student visa was given to me under the premise that the school and the migration agency existed, but it turned out that they were like bogus. So he gave me like a notice, and I had 3 months, I think, to get out. So I had 90 days to clear my belongings and move out of Australia unless I found another way to stay. So I really appreciate him having sat there and listened to me, and I think the thing that broke the ice for us was that he saw a photo, like a background photo of myself on my iPad, because I'm vain like that, but it was a photo of me deadlifting. So he was into powerlifting, and he was like, okay, cool. Like, so we started talking about that, and he could tell that my intentions were genuine. I wasn't making this up. Like, so he helped me out by giving me 3 months. And that's when I decided to apply to another school. But this time I researched the college and I applied to them for a year, because I actually really wanted to study like something to do with marketing or management, because I wanted to set up my own business. So I was like, maybe it'll be good for me to have that information. So when I registered for that college, it was very legitimate. The staff was really helpful, and they helped me kind of work out a payment plan for my tuition, because I told them what happened to me, and that gave me another, I think, year or two in Australia. So I really enjoyed studying there. The school was very small and the classrooms were very small, and I really do feel like I gained a lot of experience from there. There was like a lot of hands-on stuff. There were a lot of international students there, and if you guys want, I will try and find the information of the college I went to, but again, I paid them all like up front or whatever with my debit card, so I don't have a huge trail of everything I did, but I do have like the certificate. The biggest problem is all my stuff is still sitting in Australia, so I gotta get it back here somehow. Anyways, so that was like the first big clump of issues that I had, and then again it was resolved. While I was in college, like the second college I went to was like a private vocational college, I started looking for other work because our company that I was working with had some changes. So I wanted to kind of start looking for other work and potentially maybe even start looking for work opportunities that could sponsor me after I was done. And I started looking for like various jobs, firstly in communications, because that's kind of where my original work experience comes from, and I'm really, I guess, good at that. Not necessarily being on video, but like writing is something I'm pretty good at, I think. So I started looking at that kind of work, and I interviewed for a few companies and jobs. And then the thing was, a lot of companies were like, you're so great, you're so talented, but we're not going to sponsor you because our company, you know, doesn't sponsor, or we don't have that kind of funding or whatever, because I guess a lot of companies I was interviewing with were smaller companies. So that was another problem that I had, that I just couldn't find someone to sponsor me. So I was going to immigration agents and migration agents and immigration lawyers and talking to them, and they were like, there's no reason why you can't get sponsored, you can't get a visa, why you can't stay here. You're obviously like, you have your education, you come from a good country, like you have a lot to offer, just keep looking. So I got in touch with a recruiter, and he was really great in the beginning. He was sending me to a lot of interviews, and it was always kind of turning out where I would go, it would be a great interview process, I'd get a second interview and a third interview, and then it was like, oh shit, we don't sponsor, wah wah wah. So I'd be like, damn it. And so I feel like I was going through that process over and over again. And in this time, I started really questioning whether I wanted to stay there. And that's something I talk about all the time. Immigration is such a bitch. And like, I just found like I was bouncing off walls. Like, you're almost like pleading with the country to let you stay there, and then you hit a point where you're like, I'm actually pretty badass, like if you don't want me, I'm leaving. I just saw the viewfinder and I have hair sticking out, but you're just like, you come to a point where you realize, like, this is so stupid. Why am I wasting so much of my energy and my time and my stress on this? So I kind of started to prepare to leave. And that's when I got offered a manager's job at a gym. So I was like, that's perfect. I can stay in a gym environment. I can be a manager and I'd get sponsored. And that was with Snap Fitness. And they screwed me over big, big time. They were like, we're going to sponsor you and all that sort of stuff. And then I think like a week before Christmas, they were like, actually, we're not going to sponsor you unless you pay the lawyer fee. But legally, they're not allowed to do that. And like, they were just like, I don't know, whatever. So I had to leave. Like, they fired me essentially. Basically, like, I was working like a dog for them for weeks. I set the gym up and everything. And I even complained to the company. I did. I even reported the migration agency to the business bureau thing in the state in New South Wales. And nothing happens. Like, I just feel like I had no power. I felt so helpless when there were problems, and it just sucks. Like, I don't think that would have happened to me in Canada, but again, I could be biased, but I don't care because I've never ever had that much struggle in Canada, even with work, where a company hires me or I get screwed over by a company. And if that's ever happened, if there's ever been any kind of like things that have happened to me like that, and I've kind of communicated that to the company or a department, it's always been resolved. And I feel like ultimately I did end up leaving Australia, but with a lot of like things that had no resolution, a lot of things that never got closure, a lot of times where I just feel like I was just kind of like, you know what they say, like you're like a stooge or whatever, or you're just a part of the crowd and no one gives a shit about you. And I hated that. I love Australia. I love the life there. I love the people there. But I just felt like in my personal experience, bold underline, for those of you who start jumping down my throat, telling me that I'm a Yank and I should go back to America and India and wherever it is you think I'm from, I don't give a I don't give a fuck what you think. You know, I'm sick of people being like assholes. I'm sharing this information with you guys because I feel like everyone makes travel seem like such a pleasantry, like such a beautiful thing, but sooner or later the hardships of it do catch up to you. Some people, like I saw some people who migrated from England or Ireland or whatever, or Canada and US, and they just breezed right through their life in Australia and they never had struggles. I unfortunately was not that person, and maybe I was supposed to go through that experience so I could share it with more people. And I feel like it just got to a point where I wanted to come back. Like, you know, I was in a apartment in King's Cross in Sydney, and I came home one night at 11 o'clock. There was a guy, he was in his like underwear and he was wearing this shirt and he was covered in blood and he was trying to break into my apartment. I called the cops on him. I called the landlord. I'd only been living there 10 days and I was like, this is not a safe place for me. There was a shooting outside my building like a week before my birthday, and I was like, I need to leave, and if you can just refund some of my money, even a third of it back. I'd given him like $2,000-$3,000 so I could move somewhere else. He just said no, and it was shitty. It was so shitty. But the good thing that came out of it was that I ultimately wound up moving to Bondi, and I just lived there and I loved it. The property manager there was amazing. His name was Adrian. I don't remember what company he was with, but he was incredible. So while there was a lot of like bad things, I feel like I had really good friends. I had such incredible support. The country was so beautiful that it made me kind of want to stick through a lot of that. But ultimately, I did decide to come back to Canada, and I'm so glad I did. I do miss Australia time to time, but honestly, like, my heart is here, my happiness is here, and as much as I miss the lifestyle and the culture of Australia, I miss my friends so much. I think my issues are not with Australia, like I have nothing against it. It's the immigration process. So for anyone who's going through it, please know my heart goes out to you, and I totally feel what you're going through. But if it's something you really want, I know people who fought through a lot of struggle and made it through, and they're living in Australia or Canada or England or whatever country they wanted to migrate to happily. But just focus on your life, focus on what makes you happy. Don't get too lost in this chaos to miss out on just living your life altogether, because you're missing out on other experiences in other places too. I think every country in the world has something beautiful to offer, and I really hope I was able to help you guys out a little bit. I thank you guys so much to become a part of this group and family. I feel like I have created so many connections with so many of you, and you guys just melt my heart sometimes with the love and support you've given me. So I really hope to give that back to you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, please, please leave your comments down below. They mean so much to me. They really let me know that I'm doing something right. And if not, just let me know what other information I can provide you guys with. Thank you so much. Think strong always, and I will talk to you guys again very soon. Bye.